All right. We are wrapping up this voice note to my friend. I obviously had a lot to say around it. And again, the intent was to respond to them because I'm sending them these videos. um, but also, it's serving as a reminder for myself and for anyone who's listening. And so, if you haven't had the chance to check out part one and part two of this voice note response, then I'll catch you up to speed as to what's happening. Long story short, my friend sent me a voice note and just wanted to hear my perspective on their thoughts around adapting, becoming, shape shifting, self improvement, and wanting to share our gifts with the world. And realizing that because of the way the world is currently set up, sometimes it's disheartening when you feel like you're not playing the game that everyone else is playing. And yeah, I think for me, I'm wanting to comment on the last parts of, let's just jump into it, wanting to like comment on the last parts of your voice note. And I believe that this is going to be the last response to this particular voice note. I hope that you've enjoyed them so far in this format, and that, yeah, it was helpful in just reminding you of who the fuck you are. Um, and that you get to decide who that is, not anybody else. And so I actually got the chance every time I respond to, when I create a video or I'm creating a voice note for you, I re listen to your voice note to meet you where you're at, settle back into that moment with you, and like, yeah, just imagine as if you were right in front of me. And what I'm hearing, this is what you said is, and this is what you started off with. And so I'm saying this after listening to it again. There might be some things that want to be re-solidified, or I've even had the chance to see it from a different perspective. But I just want to make sure that, yeah, that I give my being permission to be expressed, and whatever messaging wants to come through my filter of my own personal experiences, that it does, because I appreciate you for expressing yourself with me and feeling safe enough to do so, and to share these, intimate thoughts of vulnerability. And yeah, just wanting to again remind you that I see you and I see myself in you, and vice versa, the reflection of uh, ourselves in each other's mirrors. And so, as much as this is a reminder for you, this is also a reminder for me and for anyone who feels the need to watch this video. So you say in the voice note, I always knew that I was a shapeshifter and you worked really hard to fit in, and that you were externally focused as a kid, and who liked you, and who thought that you were cool, and that you did that well into your 20s. And I want to point out right here, and I say this as your friend, I say this as someone who creates content with you, I say this as someone who is still getting to know you. You're using the word always. I always knew that I was a shapeshifter. So when we already say always, that leaves no room for margin. Always means to me 100%. And I don't believe for 1 second that 100% of the time you have been shape shifting your whole life. I believe that there were moments, whether it's 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, I believe that there were moments in your life where at 100% you felt like you didn't need to shape shift with whoever you were with. And so I want to just note, was it actually always, or was it often? And so just know that that's how intently I'm listening. um, to the point where I'm just sharing this with you, it's quite exhausting talking to people right now, because my brain is now picking up what people don't know what they're putting down. And and what I mean by that is I'm listening to each word so intently because I'm practicing and building the skill for myself that it is quite exhausting at the end of an interaction because I'm just hearing all kinds of lies, just straight up lies about their identity. And every conversation, like not every, recent conversations almost feel like, when they say you got to pick your battles, like, am I willing to have this conversation with them? And would they be able to pick up what I'm putting down? And the reality is, and this is something that I'm learning right now, is that if we don't feel safe with who we're with and the environment that we're in, then it's difficult to receive. And that turns into, and I know you know this, but this turns into a whole conversation around nervous system. Nonetheless, I know I can tell you this because I know you do this work on your own. I know that nervous system work and identity work is work that you do on your own. And so I know that I can lovingly call you out and say, is it always, sis, or is it often? And then the flip side of that is never, right? So we also don't want to be in practice of like, I never do this, or you never do that, or that never happens. Okay. 100% never of the time it doesn't happen. So a word that I've replaced with never is rarely or not as often. So just telling you that to be mindful of it because those two words specifically I hear often. And so I can't help but want to just kind of poke at it and be like, is it really often or is it really always? And is it really never? And I would say 99% of the time, that's not the case. And then I want to look at the word shape shifter. I think we need to describe what does that mean? What does shape shifting mean? And I'm guessing in your context, it's about what you're saying, like adapting to other people, their needs, their wants, which those two words in itself, I'm like, everyone needs to chill on their needs and wants. Like, recognize what state we put ourselves in when we say needs and wants. It puts us in a state of scarcity. It puts us in a state of lack. And yeah, there's those two words together in cultural conversations in the West right now as a collective consciousness are putting us literally as a global consciousness in a state of scarcity. So that's another thing I just want to be mindful of as I'm responding back to you in this voice note, aka voice video. Shape shifting. Because when I think of shape shifting, I think about a cartoon character who can shapeshift. And typically I'm like, that's cool, right? We're like, that's cool that person could do that. I think a bigger question we need to ask is, why are we shapeshifting, right? Who's in the room? What energy sources are in the room that we feel the need to shapeshift, or we feel, that the next best move is to shapeshift? And is it because we're looking for safety in that moment, right? Like, what are we looking for? Comfort? Are we looking for, like, what is it that causes us to shapeshift? And you talk about that you worked really hard to fit in. I'm like, I don't know what that looks like. No, I'm just like thinking, I'm like trying to think back to those elementary school days, middle school days. It's hard. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very common experience of wanting to do that. I think that, because this is a part of your story that I've heard often, I'm curious if there's an opportunity to retell this part of this story, if we can get to the root of why we were doing that. And I'm curious as to like what happened in your 20s, because you say that well into your 20s that you were shape shifting. Yeah, it just makes me question like what happened in your 20s where you're like, I'm going to shape shift less. Um, yeah, I don't think it's I don't think it's right or wrong, bad or good to shapeshift. I think the bigger question for me is why were we shapeshifting? Um, yeah. So then you talk about self improvement versus adaptation to everyone else's standards. So, like, given the fact that I responded in the last voice note around self improvement and just self improvement versus being, hearing this voice note for the last time, adaptation to everyone else's standards. So it's a shape shift, quote unquote, shape shifting to everyone else's standards. And I don't know about you, but I started my self improvement journey because I bought into the belief that there was something wrong with me, given the fact that I came out of the closet as queer and recognizing that coming out is just a hard conversation, but at 12 years old in 2002. And so I think my deeper, like, what's the word, like roots of that was because if this is what people are going to call, quote unquote, call out to say this is quote unquote wrong with me, then how can I make every other aspect of me quote unquote right or better or um yeah, that just kind of overshadows what is ever quote unquote wrong with me. um yeah, and when it comes to the adaptation to everyone else's standards, like, what I'm hearing, right, is like I think the overall conversation that I'm going to be leading into is everyone else, aka what you're saying, like neurotypical folks, aka normal, whatever that means, like aka like all of that, because of the way that the system has been built. This most recent system has been built, right? And I think it's still also very biologically human of us to be a part of the pack, right? To belong, to connect, because that meant safety, right? That meant that I wasn't out on my own trying to fend for myself. And so recognizing like those two things exist in our world where we don't experience safety the ways that we used to. Like it's not a tiger coming after us, like it's experiencing safety with the people that we're around and feeling also safe in the bodies that we're inhabiting right now. And so then you say, quote, becoming the person you want to become versus becoming someone who can function in today's society in the way that it's organized. Exactly what you're saying. And so I put here, ask yourself, is the person you desire to become an original of you or a copy of someone else? And even reading that, I'm like, oh, that's so cheesy. But it's like also, it's true, right? So, like, we had those conversations around like becoming. Well, who are we becoming? And I think for me, I think back when I was in my 20s and I remember saying that I want to be like Ellen and Oprah, because I wanted to have, right? Be do have. I wanted to have a talk show. So I said I need to become like Ellen and Oprah, right? And I need to do the things that Ellen and Oprah did so I can have the talk show. And, thankfully that time has passed. And I've come to the point where my greatest achievement and gift is the continued practice of truly being myself and being fully embodied in that, in this beingness, and being so like fully present in it that I have like this unshakable knowing that has developed over time to be like, this is who I am, and this is who I am being. And I guess I'm just at a point in my life where I'm so exhausted from reaching for thinking that that future self is far away from me, and that I can't experience her unless I have these things, or I have to do these things. And that goes back to what we're talking about, that principle, the be do have. So I think a bigger question is, who is it that you're becoming? Are you becoming an original of yourself, or are you a copy of someone else? And I say this and I say this and I say this because I fall into the trap too. Sometimes we create, or we consume so much content that we start to sound like other people. And I so fall into that trap one too many times, but after breaking my own personal like digital addiction and decreasing the consumption of other people's ways of how they do things, I've began finding my own way and expressing it how I experience it. And yeah, I think that that's something worth noting, given the fact that the roots of your experience and the way that you tell that story is that, quote, I always knew that I was a shapeshifter, and I worked really hard to fit in, and externally focused as a kid, and was externally focused on who liked me and who I thought was cool well into my 20s. I think that there's a through line there from that root experience to your current expression, to be like, do you find yourself still doing that in some ways or another? Obviously, thank goodness for time, not time, but thank goodness for like life happening, that we're moving away from that in a way, from like our first phases and iterations of life. But like, it doesn't mean that it's still not a part of us to some extent. Like, have we actually taken out that root is what I'm asking. And I only say this because, again, I've had conversations with you off camera and on camera, and I think it's worth just kind of seeing like maybe there's just a little bit more weeds in there. Okay. All right. So then you say, I think both of us have passions that could be unleashed on the world, and we're trying to filter them through the format that this society offers in today's age, and to find the most efficient way to present and share that passion. I think we both have so much and shape that passion. I think we both have so much to share. And I think it's exactly what we're talking about, right? Like, we've been told that the messaging that we hear, and that has been conditioning us from parents, family, community, teachers, the media, the systems, etc., are saying, hey, this is the current system, this is the current structure. You are a puzzle piece in that, but these are the puzzle pieces we're accepting because this is how the machine works. And so I think that this is an experience that most people on the spectrum of neurodiversity experience. We're like, ugh, I'm this kind of puzzle piece. And no matter which way you like soften my edges, or you kind of move me around, flip me upside down, like, I don't fit in this current system, society, and structure that has been created for this current lifetime. And yeah, and so I just hear you just asking ourselves, like, how do we share it in a format in a format that the world can take it in, and that makes sense for us and makes sense for them. And that's been my own personal frustration. That's literally the whole reason why I'm doing a live. Like, this is me sending you a voice note and recording it, as opposed to um writing this out, putting out I have some points here, but writing this out, creating in a way, getting ready to edit it. Like, this is me going against that grain, right? Like, this is me just saying, like, I'm going to do things my way. And my way means I'm going to record the voice note. I'm also going to record the video. And I'm also going to record the Instagram post at the same time while it's happening. And I'm even going to be more transparent. I found that I had this little tool, which I'm holding up is a Bluetooth clicker. And I have found out that I can get my camera to stop and start just by the press of this button, which takes another level of intention, but it's so much better than recording the whole thing on my camera and then having to edit it later. So this is what I'm trying to say. This is how my brain works, and I'm going to do it in the ways that it works for me. And so I think when you're talking about, um, just having the frustrations of trying to make it fit into a format that this society currently understands it today, I'm going to tell you, I am willing to go up against the grain to do what works for me and not apologize for it. So, as I've been saying in these videos, especially these lives, like, I'm not going to edit according to your attention span. Like, sorry, not sorry. And the reality is, if you can't sit here and have a conversation with me, let me mind you, this is not a conversation. I recognize this. But if you can't sit here and listen to someone in the practice of no edits and flashy flares and visuals and stuff, I don't know if I care to be in a real honest conversation with you in person. Like, if you think that this is boring, I don't care. I don't care. Actually, this message is for my friend, and for those who are willing to just sit there and listen and observe and try to find the through line in it for themselves. And I think that that's really difficult nowadays. I think it's really difficult to say, yeah, that may work for other people, but it doesn't work for me. But I'm also optimistic in the sense that I'm so grateful to be alive today and for having this tool called the internet, because this is our opportunity to share our gifts in the ways that work best for us. Like, there is no better time to be able to customize it for ourselves. And I think for me, I'm at the point where, like, there are five, like, I did some research, girl. I did some research. There are 5.78 billion people who have a smartphone, according to demandsage.com/smartphone usage statistics. Okay. And approximately as of July 2026, the world population is 8.3 billion people. Okay. And out of those 8.3 billion people, there's 5.78 billion people with a smartphone. And so I'm just at the point in my life where if the localized people in the space I inhabit don't fuck with me, then I'm looking and putting out my social media smoke flares for the 5.78 billion people in the world that do fuck with me. And I'll even go a little bit further. According to the mentalhealthstats.org website, an estimated 15.5 million people in the US adults, or 6% of the adult population, currently have ADHD. And recognizing that there's a treatment gap of 36.5%, and that boys get diagnosed at a 2 times rate than girls do, and also recognizing the geographic disparities and people having access to nutritious food, activity, sleep, etc. So I'm going to tell you this, whether it's ADHD, whether it's a neurodivergent brain, whether it's whatever, pick any identity. You and I have very similar identities, but pick any identity it is. Like, let that be the compound effect of whoever this video, this voice note, whatever is supposed to be for. I'm at the point where, like, I just want to play on the playground with people who want to play with me, and I want to play with them. And that's the world that we live in. Like, we don't live in a world anymore where, like, you are confined to your geographic location and that you just have to deal with the people that are around you. And this is what I love about, I personally think, I personally think the queer population is charting new paths or new ways of being. More specifically, I mean, gosh, in so many ways, that's a whole different conversation. But like, just the concept of chosen family, like, how long has that been around? Just in the language called English, like, we can do that now. And so that's why I'm just like not concerned anymore. I'm not concerned with feeling like I got to force myself to play with people that don't want to play with me. And that is totally fine with me. I don't, that's exhausting. And I think that's what you're trying to get at. Like, I think you're exhausted from the shape shifting. I think you're exhausted from adapting. I think you're exhausted from being something or someone that you're not. And exactly what you're saying here, you said, that, and you were acknowledging yourself. You're like, I forget things. I create chaos in certain situations. I get excited and I double book. I use my calendar vigorously, so vigorously, um, which I do too. And yeah, you're just laughing about the chaos creation and knowing that it comes from the speed and energy that you have, and that you're just trying to honor your strengths while gathering the resources I need in the spaces that I'm, maybe a different word is, but like the spaces I'm weaker in, rather than adapt to those spaces and grow stronger in every area. Like, this is where I'm limited and this is where I need support. And sis, that's what they call interdependence. And so I believe that the world is changing. It is so evident. If you're not paying attention, look around, I don't know what to tell you, but it's so evident that the world is changing. And I believe that that's the direction we're moving in. I think that we have been in a very dependent state. Um, yeah, dependent on the government, dependent on the systems, dependent on our parents, dependent on, we're just so dependent on other people, in which, like, I completely understand, like, tribal ways. And like I'm not saying to be, this is the thing, I'm not trying to say to be independent, right? Like, that we can't swing to the other side of the pendulum, which typically we will because we're human, where we went hyper independent, right? At least specifically in the West. I think that on the East, they have a better practice of collectiveness. But I think, in my observation, that we are moving in a direction of interdependentness. And exactly what you're saying. You're saying these are your strengths, right? Like, I am great at this, and that, another. But there's gaps in that. And I say, well, I'm great at these things. I can support you in filling those gaps while you support me in filling in mine. And so, again, may we play with the people that want to play with us and allow us to be who we want to be, and allow and give us the space and permission to evolve in the ways that we would like to experience. Like, I'm just saying, yeah, I'm just at that point, and like, let this be, coming from your younger sibling, but like, fuck them. Honestly, like, I like, when I think about you and I think about the other people in my life, like, I just think about how much, like, how grateful I am to have found you all, and to feel seen and understood in that, to feel like I don't have to over explain myself, to feel like if I feel like over explaining myself, that you would actually understand. Um, yeah, and I just feel so grateful because, again, what I told you in the first voice note, I'm like, oh, I feel so like relieved that I could finally talk to somebody about this. I can talk to someone who uses their calendar as vigorously as I do and not get shit for it. Gosh, how much I got shit for it from neurotypical people or from people in general. Like, you're going to book me in your calendar? And like, what do you think this is? I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally won't show up if it's not in my calendar. I won't remember. And then, like, second, someone, of course, who avidly journals as often as I do. And I've learned that that's just the way that I learned, so it's like a relief. And so, I don't think that a neurodivergent brain is the end all be all, but it is the internal operating system that moves all of this. And so I'm just at a place I'd rather work with it than against it. And I'm just so grateful that we live in a like day and age right now where we have access to information, like obviously being in the information age and, technology age, not technology. We've always had technology, but like, I'm just grateful that we have some sort of language to describe these experiences so that we can find common ground, that we can that we can find common ground to build off of, as opposed to this and what was created prior to us being here. And so if anything, like, in the midst of this transition, I know that it's difficult, I know that it's frustrating, I know that it could be disheartening at times, but I also can't help but say that I would rather I wouldn't want to be alive at any other time in point of history, or her story, or their story. Pick your story. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. And I hear you in terms of like wanting to, this is what you said. You said, I think both of us have passions that could be unleashed on the world, but we're trying to filter them through the format of the society. I think we have so much to share. And I agree with you. Um, and I personally think that's why we are in entrepreneurship. And I think that's why we're personally we are doing online entrepreneurship. And and realizing that the mind game, of entrepreneurship, the mind game within ourselves, and it being a reflection of us within our business, um, is really just playing. Oh my gosh, is really just playing with the mind game of other people. And I sigh because I'm just like, I can't help but think. Like, I can't help but think about our devices and the ways that it is programming other people. And so, um, yeah, I just want you to know that I believe that we're moving towards a world where everyone is already knows that they're inherently enough, that they inherently already have value, and that you already inherently have something to contribute in your way. I think that our generation might just have to be, trailblazers in that, but I can really see and feel that, like, we're if not us, then our kids and their grandkids, like, I think that they're going to live in a world where they can just be who they are. They can just be and that the skills that they naturally gravitate towards, is valued, and is compensated and given in fair exchange. I think recognizing that the society that we currently live in, and that is currently crumbling, that someone somewhere at some large table said, these are the skills that are of value, we shall pay them accordingly. And as to why I do what I do, because as a teacher, I was like, I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna get paid accordingly for raising the next generation. You crazy? I was like, so I'm gonna figure out this online thing. So I feel for my teachers, I feel for my educators, I feel for my coaches, and I feel for my guides and my mentors. And I just cannot wait to witness everyone being paid accordingly to the value that they bring by who they inherently are. And so I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic of where we're headed. I'm grateful for where we've been. And I'm grateful for where we're at right now. So yeah, I want you to know that I hear you in terms of just like, but also, what else is there? What else are we going to do? What else is there to do besides to enjoy this process called life? So I hope that this encourages you. I hope that I answered all of your questions in your voice notes. I hope that my perspective led you closer to yours. I think that's what's most important. Anything that I share, I'm at a point where, like, take what you need. Let me try that again. Take what would work for you and leave the rest. For all I know, only 10 seconds of this voice note and video will be useful for you. Great. As long as you use it, then use it. And that's all that matters. So I hope that this was helpful. And I hope that you enjoyed this documentation process and getting to see it in video form. And I would say to not send me a voice note like this again. I'm just kidding, because it might turn into a video. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that was fun. Thank you for allowing me to express myself, to respond to you in this way, and for being a point of interest and curiosity and excitement and encouragement, and allowing me to also just be and come just as I am. All right. I will talk to you sooner than you'd like. All right. Love you. Bye. All right. Okay. Well, I got done recording that part. I said what I said. And, maybe this can be a fun thing. But if you'd like me to send you a voice note uh, with a question, a thought, and just wanting to hear my perspective, then I'd say follow me on Instagram. You send me the voice note first, and then I can do a response video for you. If this felt helpful for you, if this is something that you're interested in. So yeah, if you'd like to ask a question or just hear my thoughts on a certain situation that you're experiencing or a current circumstance that you're in right now, I would say I'm a non-judgmental third party. But then I'm going to be honest. That's what I used to say. There's, there's some moments. I have some moments of judgment. I'm not gonna lie. I'm human. So just, here I am. Here I am, figuring it out alongside with you. But yeah, for the most part, for sure, non-judgmental third party. I say that because my brain can really see things objectively, and as you can tell, I kind of see things from just a different perspective. So if you want to hear more about that, message me on Instagram at IamKShort. Send me a voice note of your situation, and I'd love to respond to you in a voice note / video note. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see y'all in the next live. Bye now.